uh, you know, so so let's see. Isaiah was having some he's having some audio difficulties. We finally got those taken care of, I think. Just a quick check. How do I sound? Do I have any, like, if you I assume you guys can hear me because you've been responding, but like, do I have any background buzz or anything like that going on? Or
You sound
okay,
good to me.
all right, because I've got like an air purifier and a space heater running, and fortunately, I've got like an AI filter on my microphone, so it seems to be really good at just picking out my voice and just kind of focusing on that. So, um, but okay, cool, cool. So, so how were you guys' holidays? I spoke to Lewis right before the holidays really got underway. So, what'd you guys do over the holidays?
Just
Whole lot of nothing, huh?
visited family. Went to Houston more times than I cared to. I mean, I love it there in Houston, but like driving there back to back to back. Um,
Wait, Isaiah, where are you living now? I thought you were in Houston.
oh, I'm in Austin now.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I've been in Austin almost 3 years now. Yeah.
Not a
Um,
clue.
but
Not a clue.
yeah,
Okay.
a little bit too much driving, and then car repairs kind of like happened right as I went
Yeah.
over budget for Christmas spending. So that was fun. But that was my holiday.
No, I get that. You gotta deal with life, unfortunately. Adulting is not always fun. So
No.
so
As I'm
and
finding out the hard way.
oh you got plenty to look forward to, I promise.
I
What
never,
what'd you do? What'd you do over the holidays, Lewis?
nothing much really. I kind of just spent some time, yeah, with the family, just mostly working my other job, my pub job, which I'm actually finishing at in February, but yeah, I was mostly working there because it gets busy at bars and stuff over Christmas.
Uh-huh.
So you guys probably know how it is. But Isaiah, I never realized how far it is from Austin to Houston because I live in the UK, so I've got no sense of like time and time it takes to get somewhere. I could get to London in like 3 hours if I wanted to, and I live on the other side of the country, so I've got no idea how big that gap is. You know what I'm
That's about
saying?
Right, right. So like the UK is like probably as big as Texas, like probably a lot larger, right? Like Texas is probably half the size of the UK, right?
To be fair, even then, that's huge for one state.
Yeah,
That's mad.
yeah. So like city to city in Texas, I'm always like shocked whenever I'm going through the country, right? And I just pass through other states, right? It's like, wait, I'm already
in
in like Arkansas. I feel like I was just in Louisiana. What happened here? But like Texas is for freaking ever.
yeah, you pass through another state in like an hour or
Yeah,
45 minutes or something, whereas like so Houston where I live and then Austin where Isaiah here lives, we're 3 hours from each
yeah,
other. So that's, like he and I could hang out if we wanted to, like if we decided we wanted to during the day, but it would basically be a day trip for either one of us. So, you know,
That's mad.
but
It's that that
mhm.
always gets me every single time about the United States. It's like if you wanted to go from the West Coast to the East Coast, it would take you days. Like that's crazy.
yep,
Yeah, at least
yeah.
at least a
That's
couple
mental.
I mean, it
least a
takes
couple
you
days.
days to get from like South Central here to like the East Coast. Like it took me like a day and a half maybe to get to Atlanta on the road. Yeah, like
Yeah.
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 Mental.
Has have you guys seen the movie The Karate Kid?
Man, it's been ages. I was a child when I seen it, so
Okay,
don't remember
Lewis?
much.
I've never seen Karate Kid in my
Okay.
entire life. I know. I probably
Have you
disappointed some people there, but
Nah, it's fine. If you ever watch Cobra Kai, though, I'd suggest watching the Karate Kid movies first. But at the very beginning of the very first Karate Kid movie, Daniel and his mother start off in Jersey, and they make the trip they basically do a cross country road trip all the way to California.
Whoa,
And
really?
yeah, and it's just like I could only imagine how long that took. It probably took
Right?
about a week. So,
Just get
but
on the
yeah,
Oregon Trail.
uh, You have died of dysentery. So, oh, but yeah, Texas is huge. Texas is
Texas is
huge,
huge.
and yeah, they and Texans generally don't make any apologies about it until they have to drive from somewhere to the other. So, all right, okay. Um, so let's see. I don't believe you two have met before. So, but Lewis, Isaiah and I have known each other for probably what, at least a decade at this point.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
Probably more than that. And we were both in Houston at the same time, and I met him, I think, through Houston Public. I was doing I was trying to do comic book programming in the library, and so I reached out to some of the local creators, of whom Isaiah was one of them. And so he and I kind of became friends that way, and discovered that we had similar tastes in comic books and stuff like that. And yeah, and I think at the time I was aspiring to try to create comics, and Isaiah was doing it. So I, of course, pestered him with all kinds of questions about the process and everything like that. So, and then Isaiah, Lewis and I met, I don't know, probably what, 6 months ago. He's a Spider-Man. He has a Spider-Man YouTube channel, and he puts out a lot of content all the time, and it's usually reviews of the comics, kind of hot takes on specific like Spider-Man events and stuff. Puts out a whole lot of content all the time, and I was always really impressed with it. And so I wrote him an email, and I'm like, hey, I do Spider-Man content too sometimes, and so I asked him if he wanted to be on the podcast. And I think at this point, Lewis, you may have the most appearances on the podcast. So
Do I? Oh,
yeah,
that's crazy.
I
I'm
think
honored.
so.
That's crazy.
I think you do. I think you do.
Nice.
But yeah, so I'm really glad that you two are getting to meet and everything. And I just, before we get started, I just want to let you know, I know how that tier list looks. As when I was putting it together, I was just trying to get it done, and then I looked at it. I'm like, it's a nice looking tier list, but it would have been nice if I had labeled each of those pictures. So I realized that they do not have labels that tell you what they are. I'll keep that in mind for the next tier list that I create. But I just kind of wanted to let you guys know I do have the list here, and we'll be going over it. And I'm going to assume, I mean, I know that Lewis has definitely played some of the more recent Spider-Man games. Isaiah, I assume you've played a Spider-Man game or two in your time.
I played quite a few Spider-Man games in my time. I haven't played the recent games. And when
Dude, they're so good.
they look great, right? And I was doing my research for this episode, actually, and I was looking at some of the abilities from the recent two games. And it was just like scratching. It was like there's this itch that needed scratching, right? So I'm definitely going to be getting it someday, because I'm playing Bayonetta 3 right now, and I was seeing a lot of the skills. It's like this looks an awful lot like Bayonetta, like it's a character action game. I've got my dodges, I've got my combos that do like air combos and knocking enemies into the air, and then so I checked out what's going on in the current games. I think the last Spider-Man game I played was Spider-Man 3 on the Wii.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, so it's been a while since I played an actual Spider-Man game, but I played I played the PlayStation Spider-Man games. Of course, I played like the 90s beat 'em up, Maximum Carnage.
Yes.
Yeah. The X-Men crossover one. Yeah. So and then of course things like the Ultimate Alliance games. I played a lot of. So.
Oh man, you carried me through Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. Do you remember that?
Game. Yeah, I remember that.
I was doing a birthday stream, and and I had a different game scheduled for each hour, and when Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 came up, Isaiah showed up, and he's like, "Oh, cool, let's play." So we connect up, and his characters are like way higher leveled than mine, and so he was able to just like get me to the ending of the game. I was actually really happy. I was like, yes, I don't have to work as hard,
Cheers.
you know. So, um, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. So anyways, all right. Well, if you guys are good, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I see that Sith Apple has said hello in the chat. How are you doing, my friend? Good to see you. I hope all is well and that you'll stick around and enjoy this episode of the podcast. So, let me think. Oh, before we get started, Isaiah, I want to let you know I've added a new segment to the podcast since you were last here. It's called the Web Spinners Recommendations. And essentially, you just recommend a piece of media for people who listen to the podcast. It doesn't have to be Spider-Man related. I actually try not to recommend just anything that is on your mind. A video game, a book, audiobook, podcast, movie, TV show, anything like that. So
Right.
I just wanted to let you know so you had some time to think about it and, not get caught flat-footed. So I like to try to remove surprises because I'm not always a big fan of them myself. So all right, you guys ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Okay. Here we go. Hey, everyone, and welcome to The Webline, a podcast about Spider-Man and his amazing world. Here we discuss all aspects of our favorite web-slinger in a fun, informal, but informative forum. I am your humble host, the Spidey Librarian, and this week we're back from our holiday hiatus with another Spidey Games episode of the podcast. Spidey Games focuses on individual Spider-Man video game reviews as well as more generalized topics involving Spider-Man's place in video game media. For this edition of Spidey Games, I am joined by my friends Lewis Talbot from the Lewis Films YouTube channel and the talented Isaiah Broussard from the Brass Comics website, where he creates the webcomics Transiltown and Crackers and White Wine. Gentlemen, how are things in your respective worlds, and how has the new year been so far?
Things are going great here. New year is going well. Super excited to launch some new projects. I'm finishing up, my webcomic series that I've been working on for a long time. It's actually done, but there's some new content coming for the print that's coming out soon. But new year, new projects, same me.
Yay! All right, and I mean, like, I've read enough of your work to just be like, dang, I wish that I could like draw and frankly write at that level and then put something out regularly. So I'm really happy that you're able to do that and to make a living out of it too. So Lewis.
First of all, I just want to say that's really awesome. Where can I read some of your work? That's incredible.
It's brasscomics.com. You'll find all of my projects there.
I'm just gonna write that down in a tab.
Well, remember,
so
I'll put all of this in the in the show notes and in the link, the live stream description. So
that's really cool, man. Yeah, I've been getting into like comics recently anyway, like reading more the last like few years anyway. Just like I did it first for content, but then I kind of just started liking them. So I was like, hey, I like reading comics. So I'm always looking for a new comic to read. That's all I've been doing in the new year, pretty much, just reading comics and making videos. That's pretty much it.
Oh yeah? Read anything particularly interesting or?
No, not really. It's kind of just Spider-Man. Just I guess a lot of time.
We know Spider-Man's not interesting.
No, the new Ultimate Spider-Man comic came out, which is really good. I'm really excited. Yeah,
I was actually hoping you'd mention that. I've read that first issue and I'm really happy with it so far. So, yeah, I definitely would love to discuss that at length with you at some point because I imagine we've both got some interesting perspectives on that. Isaiah, have you heard about this?
No. So what's going on with the Ultimate Spider-Man comics now?
Oh wow. Okay. So, um, they recently just released an Ultimate Spider-Man comic. You know, and I know there was one back in the early 2000s. But this
Mhm.
is like a different multiverse, if you will. And in this one, Peter is like in his 30s, I assume, or mid 30s. I don't know. He
So
is
we're on the
married.
opposite spectrum of the
Yeah,
original Ultimate Spider-Man. Okay.
yeah. He is married and he has kids with MJ. And he has not yet been bitten by the spider.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that changes everything.
Yeah, and Lewis and I both have been waiting with bated breath for this because a common complaint that I hear among readership of Amazing Spider-Man is that people really want Peter not to be like a perpetual young adult anymore. They want him to age up a little bit.
That's
And the
Miles's thing now.
yeah,
Mm.
and the editors at Marvel keep saying, nah, people keep saying how great it is that, you know, and I think finally they've finally heard enough that they basically gave this title to Jonathan Hickman, and they just put the first issue out like what, a week, 2 weeks ago? I can't remember.
Yeah, just under 2 weeks ago.
And I read it, and I was just so happy with that first issue.
I
So
got the hardback as well. Oh no, I dropped it.
wait, there's a hardback? What?
Hardback for a first issue? What?
Yeah, man.
Oh
Yeah, I
my
got it.
God.
Nice.
I got it from a local comic
Wow.
shop. Yeah,
Nice.
it's really good. Oh, I'm so
Oh.
excited.
Who's the artist on the project?
It's what's his name?
Chichetto,
Chichetto. I don't know. I'm really butchering his name, but he's really good. Like
yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah, no, it's excellent, and I hope you get a chance to read it. It's really good. So, all right, and as you can see on this podcast, we definitely love our tangents. I'm a master of them. So, for this edition, oh wait, I've already done that. So hold on. We've got a tier list episode on deck today, in which we'll be going through a few spider abilities that have featured in video games, talking about them, and ranking them on the tier list I created especially for this episode. If you would like to follow along and make your own rankings, you can find the template at the link I've provided in the show notes and the video description. As today's episode will involve the inherently visual medium of tier lists and visuals of those abilities that we'll be rating, we'll do our best to describe them, but we'll also have visual aids on the live stream. So for an ideal experience, I would recommend viewing this episode on YouTube. I'll be sure to put the episode link in the show notes when it goes out to audio services. All right. Oh, okay. I'm going to plug the Patreon real quick. The Spidey Librarian Patreon provides access to my premium content. There's currently just one tier, the $5 Spider Society Citizen tier, which gets members shoutouts on the Webline podcast and on my uploaded YouTube videos, a special role on the Spidey Librarian Discord server, Spider Society Citizen, and now live reaction content. I've just uploaded my... Oh, wait, no, I haven't done that. I am about to upload my first movie reaction video for The Amazing Spider-Man, with more Spider-Man and other movies to follow. You can also, for free on Patreon, vote for which movies I'll next be watching. That's right, you do not have to be a paying member to access movie polls. More roles, perks, and possibilities will arise as we grow and diversify. So join the Spidey Librarian Patreon today as we grow into a full-fledged Spider-Man community. Link will be in the description and show notes. All right. The Webline streams on Sundays at 2 p.m. Central on my YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe there and on your favorite podcast service, and leave us a like, review, and follow where appropriate. If you're on a service that doesn't carry the Webline, let me know by shooting me an email at spideylibrarian@gmail.com, and I'll do what I can to get it pushed out to you. And finally, for those of you with us on the live stream today, please be sure to thwip the like button and chime in with your perspectives in chat. But before we do a daring dive into our timely... Oh, no, I messed that up. All right. This is what I like about live streams. Editing is a thing. So, all right. But before we do a daring deep dive into our timely topic, it's time to dish on the latest spiderific developments with our knockout news segment, the Bugle Newsflash. Okay, all right. So since the podcast has been on hiatus for the last few weeks, I took off like right before Christmas and wanted to come back after a few weeks. I'm basically going to cover one news item from the last week, and then we're also going to discuss some of the bigger news items that happened over the last few weeks. And unfortunately, the ones that I remember are kind of negative, which sucks. We're going to go ahead and just start with the hack that happened to Insomniac. Again, like kind of right as I was doing the previous episode of the podcast is when all of this happened. And a lot of the information was still coming out. And what's unfortunate about this, after kind of listening to Lewis and also Tyler, who was the guest on the show at the time as well, as perspectives about it, I kind of thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, hackers suck, and because they screw up the process for the people creating the product, and the ransomware hack revealed plans for, among other games, like the Wolverine game, and I think they have been discussing a multiplayer Spider-Verse game, plans for Spider-Man 3, like probably the post-it note versions of the plan, like, we'll consider these at another time. Those were also revealed, and what ended up happening is the attackers basically wanted Insomniac to pay them $2 million, I believe was the amount that they wanted, and Insomniac, in my opinion, they did the right thing, and they're like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And so they released all the data that they had stolen from Insomniac, which had included a lot of plans to a lot of possible games that the company was thinking about making. And I think that, because unfortunately this is a thing that I think is going to continue to happen. You're going to have people who are opportunists who try to, do stuff like this. And I think when these kinds of things happen, like, I'm going to report on them, but I'm also just going to kind of be very kind of minimalist about it. Like, I don't know what the plans allegedly were for Spider-Man 3, and I don't want to know. I feel like if I go out and try to figure out, like, what exactly was leaked, then I'm kind of contributing to the problem. And so I just kind of I don't know what the plans are for the Wolverine game. Some of those got leaked. I think there was like for a Venom game. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, all right, they're out there. I don't want to know anything. I don't want to know anything that is not released through the proper channels by the people making the product. It's one of the reasons that I don't report about leaks on this podcast as well. Isaiah, Lewis, do you have any thoughts about this? Because I mean, again, it's just kind of one of those things that's like, why are people like this?
Yeah, like, my thoughts on it is that I'm not even sure if these type of hackers are even in it for the money, right? Because, like, who's gonna pay for that, right? $2 million, right? Like, then they just lost their investment on whatever projects just got leaked. But my opinion of it is like, who cares about the leaks, really? Like, what they're putting out there is information on projects that are like nuggets of ideas, things that are still being iterated upon, things that are still being discussed, and deals are being made for. And like, all it does is set up expectations. Like, I think fandom can sometimes be toxic already.
Oh yeah.
and full of like high expectations already, and then to set up these expectations so high for things that don't even actually exist yet. Like I'm into the Resident Evil fandom, and I remember there was a hack on Capcom, and that spoiled information that there was a Switch exclusive Resident Evil game that was in the works that has never come into fruition, right? And then you get all these fans that are sure it's going to happen, and waiting for the next Nintendo Direct and waiting for the drop of this news of something that probably wasn't even close to being finalized. And so it kind of spoils our experience in fandom. Also, some group out there can get the internet cool points of releasing that information. So yeah, it's good to not even really speak on it or give them the time of day.
Yeah.
No,
And I mean,
100%. And it's like,
yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, like, that ends up getting stuff canceled too.
Mm-hmm.
Like stuff that might have been good is never now gonna happen. So, anyways, sorry. Go ahead, Lewis.
No, yeah, no, 100%. And it's like, I think, Isaiah, you completely hit the nail on the head there with the fact that, like, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because, like, the games themselves, whether they happen or not, the final product is going to be so different to what has been leaked. Whether it happens or it doesn't happen. Marvel Spider-Man 3, when it does come out, everyone already knew it was going to come out, but when it comes out, it'll be completely different to anything that's been leaked. I think the only game that's really taken any damage is Wolverine, because that's very, very far in development. It's going to be out in the next year or so. So it's like, that's the only game that's like had a lot of damage because gameplay's come out and plot stuff has come out, but stuff that can't be changed, necessarily within the time frame that they have left. So it's like, I think apart from that, it's like, I don't think anyone should really take any more notice of it. Obviously, you want to avoid spoilers as much as possible, just in case things end up being true and end up going ahead. But I don't think anyone should really take any more than a grain of salt with the leaks.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. Like, yes, it's a significant development, and so it's something that Insomniac has responded to. Like, they actually did. They put out a message thanking people for their support and everything like that. And but like, aside from that, like, I don't really want to know the details, because I don't want to help spread the cool points for the jerks doing this, kind of thing. So I don't know. It is a development that has given me a lot of food for thought over the last few weeks, and so I just felt like it was worthy of bringing up again. However, that's not the only bit of bad news that happened over the last few weeks. The face model for Mary Jane in Marvel's Spider-Man 2 recently called out fan behavior because apparently some people crossed boundaries in a way that made her feel unsafe and uncomfortable. First of all, the actress, her name is Stephanie Tyler Jones. She's switched careers. She's kind of walked away from acting and is doing something else now. But apparently, at her new job in this new industry that she is in, she has basically gotten calls and voicemails from fans of the video game who, want to talk to her about that, and basically have left messages indicating, or I don't know the actual content of those messages, but her response was that she ended up going into work, getting these messages, feeling uncomfortable and unsafe, and ended up kind of leaving the office for the day. She went on to social media and basically said, this is basically tantamount to stalking. And I, that work is not something that you contact someone who is working, for instance, like in the healthcare industry now. Maybe they had acted before and they've switched, it's like you don't track people down like that. And shortly after she made that post, one of the developers at Insomniac, one of the higher ups at Insomniac, said, I should not need to say this, but don't go don't go trying to hunt down people's personal information. That is really not cool, and it puts a bad, it puts a bad face on the fandom of these particular games. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just expect too much from people. I don't know, because like reading that just kind of left yet another bad taste in my mouth. Like, again, why are people like this? I don't know. Do you guys have anything to say about it?
I think I agree with Insomniac. We shouldn't have to remind people to be decent human beings. Celebrities, actors, face models, they're people too. Don't do things to those people that you wouldn't want done to you. They have private lives of their own. Leave them alone.
Yeah. It's one thing having an opinion on the game, it's one thing having an opinion on someone's performance or writing or graphics or whatever it may be, whether you're allowed to have an opinion on something that's artificial. But when you start digging people's personal information up and start stalking people, and like, that's mad. Like, you can't do that. That's not right. No, don't do that.
It just blows my mind that some people don't appear to have that filter, though. Like, there is public life and there is private life, and there should be a really strong partition between them. And some people just don't want to bother with it, I guess. I don't know.
100%.
I wish that actress nothing but positive thoughts and good luck in her new career. If she ever shows up at a con, like, I would definitely want to ask her questions about the game. But until she does that, I'm not gonna go trying to track her down. Like, okay, all right. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on. All right, final bit of spider news for this week is that we have gotten some new posters and promotional material for Madam Web. I've seen all kinds of opinions about the posters. They are, if you guys haven't had a chance to see them, I don't know, but like, they're basically kind of gray photographs of most of the main stars. And then, like, you can see color in their eyes and also on the costumes that they're wearing. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I like them. I think they're really nice. I think someone said that these are really bad, and I'm like, okay, these are kind of simple, I guess. It's not difficult to do, but it still looks good. It looks very evocative to me. Have you guys had a chance to see these yet? And if you have, what do you think of them?
I haven't seen them yet. Trying to look it up right now.
I kind of figured that. That's why I was trying to talk for as long as I could.
No, I think they're great.
Yeah,
I think they're great. This is one thing I don't get about. Right, okay. I understand that Madam Web may not be the most appealing movie on the planet coming out this year. Because, well, I don't know. It's the trailer was okay. There's a few bits of promotional material that do look a little tad amateur from Sony, in my opinion. But most of the posters and stuff that they've done, I think, look really cool. Like the whole red vibe and the webs and the shattered, like the sharded, like difference between the actors' faces and then them in the costumes, and I think that's really cool. And I think it tells you a lot about the movie. It's a whole multiverse, time traveling, different timelines type film. I think they're cool. There's nothing wrong with them. I think they're really nice.
I think the biggest complaint that I've seen so far has been the eyes on the costume. Like, they want the white paneling over the eyes, which I'm just like, yeah, but I kind of like the idea of this being like being able to, to actually see their and who knows, it might be different for the movie. I don't
look. Actors make so much money off their face, right? They want their face seen. So few people want to put on the full. I mean, that's why Hawkeye's, looks different in the movies, because Jeremy Renner, wanted his face shown. I don't know. What I'm looking at, I kind of get, I don't know, the first thing that comes in my mind is like Powerpuff Girls or Sentai Heroes, like everyone's color coded. So
I
I'd
hadn't
have to
thought
see it
about
in
that.
action. But I mean, it looks pretty simple to me. But like, you know, I'd have to see what they're going for and see if it works in the film and the you know, the color composition of the film and the rest of the costume design in the film, because it's not just costume and character design isn't just in a vacuum, right?
Right. Yeah.
It exists within its realm, and so you know you can look at an individual costume and say, hey, I don't like this one too much, but if I look at the rest of the characters and the rest of the movie around it, it probably works in that setting. So I'd have to see more of it. But
No, you're
Well,
totally
you won't.
right. I think they. Oh, sorry. I
No,
was just
no,
going
go
to
ahead.
agree on that point. No, you're totally right with that. I think from what I've seen mostly so far, I don't know if you guys would agree. I think it looks fairly consistent, and I think it does match the tonality of that world. I think it very much
Yes,
it
I would
fits.
agree.
It fits the vibe that it's very much it's an early 2000s kind of action thriller, and it's you know there's a lot of there's a lot of like I don't know how you describe it. The tonality is very mysterious, and there's a lot of red lighting, and there's a lot of shadows, and I think the costumes do kind of fit that. So I
Mhm.
think overall it is pretty consistent with what it's going for. Obviously, we'll have to see when the full movie comes out and how they fit into the narrative. But I think generally it looks pretty good for now. I
Yeah.
can't see anything wrong with it. I don't think.
Well, we won't be
yeah,
waiting too much longer. It's coming out on Valentine's Day,
oh, that's right
so
around the corner. Wow.
Oh,
yeah,
yep.
yeah. And in fact, I will. I think is it the final episode of this block? I'm going to be doing a reaction and review of Madam Web for the podcast. So I'm looking forward to it, if only because this will be, you know, covering new content, and that'll be really exciting. So, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think given the kind of premise of Madam Web, or at least what we know of the premise of Madam Web, like I think these posters and I think this promo material, I think it fits the bill. So I know that for instance, Karma here on chat says, you know, I'm gonna be honest, the trailers and the pictures look like trash. I mean, you know, respectfully, you know, we're all allowed to have the opinions that we want. I think for at least what has been stated so far for what they're going for, I like what I'm seeing so far. So, you know, I might get to the movie and I might just be like, oh my God, what a stinker. But we're not there yet. So, all right. And that's all the Spidey news for this week. Now, let's get ready for our feature segment, the Spidey Games tier list rating, the various spider abilities in video games. All right. So let's see. Before we get started, let's hit the requisite housekeeping notes. I create these tier lists at tiermaker.com. Please send your own versions of them to my Discord server, to the channel named Webline Tier List. And if you enjoy them, please also rate them on Tiermaker. The link to today's tier list is in the show notes and the live stream description. And finally, these tier lists are personal and people will have differing opinions over them. I offer this up not as the authoritative end-all be-all of Spider-Man tier lists, but as an expression of my own opinions as a comics reader, Spider fan, and connoisseur of the wall crawler across many media. Please feel free to disagree with me, but please keep your disagreements civil and respectful. We are all fans of Spider-Man here, and we should keep that in mind whenever we are expressing our opinions and views on this subject. With all that said, let's get into it and go over some of the significant spider abilities featured in video games over the years. I've assembled a list of 14 spider abilities, some of which only featured in one game, and some that are arguably in every Spider-Man game. I deliberately didn't list everything, partially because I wanted to have time to discuss them, and because I'm hoping to at least do a part 2 of this segment at some point in the future. All right. So, gentlemen, first of all, I sent Lewis and Isaiah the tier list ahead of time. However, I'm just going to apologize to everyone. It is not the clearest tier list in the world. If you take a look at it, there are some really nice pictures of Spider-Man from like the video games and everything. However, none of the moves are labeled, and so it can be very confusing. So I'm going to talk about those, and as I go down the list, just kind of go across, and I'll let you know what each one is ahead of time. Now, the very first one, the picture on the very left, which I don't think we can see at the moment because of where I've placed all of the. Hold on, there we go. This will give us a little bit more perspective here. So the very first ability that we're going to cover is web swinging. The second ability is web zipping. The third is web bullets, web projectiles, whatever you want to call them. Then let's see. The next two are kind of go together. There's basically the weapon yank, and then the yank and throw. Let's see. After that, we've got payback. And then the next three abilities are from Spider-Man Miles Morales. There's going to be the Venom Smash, the Venom Dash, and then the Venom Jump. I cannot wait to talk about those. And then from Marvel's Spider-Man, the 2018 game, I get some of Peter's gadgets into the mix. We have the trip mines, the impact webbing, and the electric web. And then my final two abilities are from some fairly old Spider-Man games. There is the symbiote instant quick change from Spider-Man Web of Shadows. And then from the Spider-Man PS1 game, there is the web cocoon. And again, these abilities run the gamut from they're in everything to they're only in this one game. We're going to go through and describe them all and talk about where we think these abilities should go on a tier list. Now, I imagine that we all have our own ideas of what constitutes a proper Spider-Man game. And so I want to describe these abilities as much as possible, and then just kind of talk about, how necessary are they and how do they make you feel when you use them. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the first one. And I'm just going to bring it up. It's web swinging. I'm just going to start it off in excellent in the middle of the tier. And obviously, I would say you can't have a Spider-Man game without web swinging. However, those games do exist, actually. I won't say where yet, but web swinging to me is just the pinnacle of being Spider-Man, and I feel like a good Spider-Man game is going to absolutely nail the web swinging. That's your traversal. It is just part of the Spider-Man experience, and when they get it right, the web swinging can make or break a Spider-Man game. I certainly feel like starting with the 2018 Marvel Spider-Man game, they basically perfected web swinging along with a few extra tweaks for each game. Guys, web swinging, I want your takes on it from any of the various video games that you have played with Spider-Man, and where do you think it should go on this tier list?
So I'm an old school gamer, right? My first Spider-Man games were the side-scrolling beat 'em up games, right? Where if web swinging was in the game, it was a glorified dash, or it was like a bonus stage kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But my mind was blown when Spider-Man the movie 2 came out, and that was the first one where like you were actually web swinging, right? Because like the PS1 game, you could web swing, right? But you'll be on top of skyscrapers, sending your webs up into nothing. and Spider-Man still swings just so that you can have a way to like platform around the place, right? But once they got like the physics matter, where you are in the stage matters, that was the coolest thing in the world, right? And then the one where I had the most fun with it was probably the Ultimate Spider-Man game, and they took out some of the really cool tricks, but it was like, it was a little streamlined, but it was tight and it was fluid, right? And so that was kind of like peak web slinging for me. And I followed that up with the Wii version of Spider-Man 3. And that was just cool because I had the Wii remote, right? Right.
Of course. Right. Yeah.
So all of a sudden I kind of feel like Spider-Man.
Motion control. Yes. Yes.
But I'm gonna put web swinging at iconic. You get that right, and that's your Spider-Man game. It should, like, traversal should be a cool thing. And once video games got to the point where you could do that, I feel like it's hard to have a Spider-Man game if you're not doing the whole open world web slinging thing, and then even throwing in fun like speed challenges and traversal challenges into it. So that's where it is for me.
Okay. All right. Lewis?
I can't disagree with anything I can't disagree with any point to do with not putting web swinging in iconic. But I do want to point out, though, if I'm going to contribute anything to the web swinging, is that I think there is a version of Spider-Man that does hold up without web swinging in the game.
Okay,
and it might sound quite controversial because I think definitely having a Spider-Man game without web swinging and good traversal is like, you know, it's like sacrilege, right? You can't not do it. But I think there is. So I don't know if you guys have played it, Spider-Man Friend or Foe, the game.
I haven't played it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
I have.
That had no web swing. Well, it had one web swinging mechanic, and you double tap the space bar, and he swings once, and you can swing kick enemies. Basically, Spider-Man Friend or Foe is a glorified Lego game, but for Spider-Man. It basically is. Like, you get to play as Spider-Man, but then with each mission that you complete, you get to unlock a different character to be your sidekick, and you get to switch between them like you do in the Lego games. And you're basically battling an army of symbiotes each time as you progress through the level maps. But the symbiotes get harder each time, and then at the end of the map, you have to battle a boss, which, like the Lego games, will be controlled by some kind of evil mastermind come the end of the game, which turned out to be Mysterio. And it's basically a glorified Lego game. But I think that works in that format, and it's a really fun game because it takes that Lego game format. But it works for Spider-Man because you unlock all his villains. You don't just get to play Spider-Man, you get to play as the Green Goblin, you get to throw pumpkin bombs. You get to play as Doc Ock. So you get to use the arms, and then you get to play as like characters like Prowler and Black Cat. Black Cat has like her lash thing, and then you get to play as Venom. He also has webs. So it's really cool. You get to like pair characters up. So I think for that, completely fine. Don't need web swinging whatsoever. And that could, in a modern, if that came out today, I'd be totally happy with that.
Right. It's kind of like
go ahead.
It's kind of like ensemble casting, where like the Ultimate Alliance games, right? Like, you've got so many characters, so many different abilities, you really can't flesh out like one single thing, right? So web swinging, not super important in that kind of game, in your arcadey ensemble cast beat 'em up kind of thing. But if you're gonna go for the open world experience, gotta nail the web slinging.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Absolutely. All right, and you guys have both voted to put it in iconic, and you know what? I cannot disagree with you. I had a feeling this was going to be an easy one here. I mean, it's web swinging, you know, so of course it goes into the iconic. It is, if you nail the web swinging, especially in an open world Spider-Man game, you've got it. Like, you're basic. Everything else becomes secondary. It's still delicious, but everything else just is icing on the cake. So web swinging, iconic, totally easy. I kind of knew that was coming. So all right, okay, we're gonna move on to the next one, which is gonna be web zipping. Okay, All right. Now, web zipping is where Spider-Man basically he shoots out a web line or two web lines or what have you, and then he literally just kind of like yanks it and pulls himself up along the web line. It's usually featured as a supplement to web swinging, to just kind of gain more horizontal distance before you have to throw out another swing line or whatever. However, I would like to point out that web swinging is arguably Spider Man's oldest featured power in video games. In the Atari 26 version, the Atari 2600 version of Spider Man, the game that came out in 1980. First of all, not a great Spider Man game, all right? But it was also the first one when the video game medium was pretty young. So but that's how he moves because you can't. He starts off on the wall. He has to throw out a web line, and then he has to pull himself up on the web line to move. He cannot just like crawl up the walls. There's no free swinging mechanic. There's just basically him web zipping him. I don't think they called it web zipping at the time. I don't know what they called it, but I remember hearing the term web zipping probably around the time of Ultimate Spider-Man, like when the big open world stuff started to really come up. Um, but yeah, this is one of those moves that I personally think is a really cool addition to the whole web swinging thing, and has also occasionally just come in handy whenever like I think in Marvel's Spider-Man 2018, there's actually a scene where like you can't web swing. You have to make it across the city, and so basically all you can do is web zip and point launch off of wherever you land. And I don't know. I thought that was both a really frustrating stage, but also really cool in concept. So I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on the spider ability of web zipping in video games?
I really like the web zip. It's I think I kind of think of it along the lines of it's not the flashiest thing in the world, but it's a necessary tool. Um, it lets you kind of change direction midair. Like you said, keep that horizontal momentum. Gives you just a lot of maneuverability when you're web swinging, and if it gets incorporated like in the ground fighting, it's a way to kind of zip to a foe that you need to get to quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those like game utility things that like it might not be the coolest thing in the world. It's not the flashiest thing in the world, but it does its job, and it adds to the whole gameplay experience. So it's something that I would probably put at like excellent. Like it's above memorable. It's really awesome at what it does, but it's not really like it's not super flashy.
Okay. All right. Lewis?
I'd agree. Yeah, I think B is about right for WebZip. It's been around for a while, so it gets brownie points, but yeah, it's not entirely flashy, and also I think a few games have really butchered it. Like if I remember, it might just be because I played a lot of the games on the PC instead of console in the early like days.
Okay.
Um, so I think maybe I had a bad experience, but Spider-Man 3, the movie tying game, uh, and Spider-Man 2 are both on the PC. The web zip was just awful. Like it was just they butchered it so hard. But obviously in other games like the Marvel Spider-Man games, Web of Shadows with the web strike feature, oh my god, one of the best things in the entire game. Like you could literally go through a whole level, not use any other move, and just web strike, and you could literally beat the whole level. I actually, you know what? I'll be surprised if this hasn't happened. I'd be surprised if someone hasn't beaten the game by just web striking. I am
Oh,
that confident
You
in
can
this
do the
ability.
challenge run, put it up on YouTube.
I might do it. Yeah,
There you go.
yeah. Yeah, so this
yay.
it's such a good like it's been done really well, but I think also there has been a few times where it's been butchered. I don't know what you guys think about that, but it's been in every Spider-Man game some way or another. Like even we were talking about Friend or Foe, I think it was in Friend or Foe in some way. So you know,
I mean, I think you kind of saw variations of it in terms of for an attack.
Yeah,
Like
like the web strike in Web of Shadows. It was kind of more like,
yeah,
oh, I'm gonna web towards an enemy and then I'll like hit them, sort of thing. I
right.
think so.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
it's been a while since I played the game, but I think so.
I'm actually gonna cover friend or foe later this year. So I've got it for the Xbox 360. So
Nice.
I'll probably live stream some gameplay when I do that too. So all right, okay. So let's see. So B tier, I will cop to being probably a little bit biased here. I don't know why, but for some reason I really loved that move. And I think before my own YouTube channel was named Spidey Librarian, I incorporated the term webzip into my username. It was like webzip 1234 or something like that, and I did it because I was just like, no one else is going to use that name for one, and then two, this is a move that I really feel has a lot of utility. Definitely not iconic like web swinging. Um, and definitely, I mean, I want to call it amazing, but I also am cognizant of the fact that there are many other abilities that are also a lot more recognizable, a lot more useful, and things like that. So I believe that the B tier is a pretty good placement for web zipping. All right. Um, Ability number 3. Okay. This is a picture of Spider-Man, and he's using I think this is the part where you like throw a bomb and then you you shoot the web bullets at it to make it blow up safely. Like I think that's what that is. Finding pictures for each of these moves was not easy, just so you guys know. I did quite a bit of searching for these. But this is basically kind of you see this in a lot of games that are either Spider-Man games or they feature Spider-Man in them, like Marvel Ultimate Alliance comes to mind, where it's just basically a kind of I'm going to hit you with these, and it's going to cause damage, or it will slow you down and stun you. It's basically kind of like a web projectile attack, and these have featured in quite a few Spider-Man games. Not all of them, but quite a few. And I mean, I can tell you that in the more recent games, I use the hell out of those web shooters for that purpose all the time. What do you guys think?
Most of the games that I've used the web shooters in, it's been a meh for me. And it's kind of
Okay.
the Spider-Man does the thing that Spider-Man does. He shoots out the web. It's his go-to projectile. And the way I end up looking at it, in at least a lot of the games that I play, is the same way I push the gun button in Bayonetta. Is I have nothing else to do right now. I'm not close enough to you. I can't get close enough to you, and I'm just trying to keep my combo going until I can get to the point where I do something else. And just in a lot of the games, it's not like if it instantly webs something for me, I'd be cool with it, right? But for a lot of the games, I got to push the button a lot of times before it gets any sort of like sticky action on anyone. Whereas like in the Ultimate Alliance game, right? If I have Iceman and I do an ice beam, that guy's frozen.
Yes.
One button, dude's frozen. I got to sit in place with Spider-Man for a little while before I can web them up. So I'm only going to do this until I get close enough to like launch myself at you and kick you. So yeah, that's pretty low on the bar for me.
All right. Okay. Lewis?
Fair enough. I never thought about it like that because I guess it kind of is just a cop out when you're fighting an enemy and you're just like, well, I ran out of everything else I can do. So, web bullets, I guess. But I don't know. I quite like them because I think maybe because, for me, getting to use the web bullet, it's kind of the same for swinging in that sort of sense. Like being able to use the web bullets is kind of like it kind of makes me feel like Spider-Man because in the comics and in the shows I grew up with, they used to use them all the time, and it's like, oh my god, I'm Spider-Man. Like I get to use these web bullets, web up enemies. Oh, this is amazing. No pun intended. Maybe a little. So I don't know. I'd rank them pretty highly, but I see a point. I do. I feel you. I think that's you make a very compelling argument. It is kind of just a bridge between I'm going to attack you and I've ran out of things to do. So I kind of get that. I do understand. I'd rank them in amazing, but I understand why you're coming through with meh.
Yeah, if it consistently worked the way that it did in media, right, where like Spider-Man whips and then someone's gun is on the wall behind them, or someone is on the wall now, right? Like it would be cool. And a lot of times in the Spider-Man games, there's a dedicated action for that, right? Like it's something that you either have to do more inputs for, more risk, more reward, and you get rid of their weapon, or you instantly tie someone up with. But when it comes to just like the basic web shooter, it's just the pew pew button.
I've kind of gone back and forth on this one because, yes, the web shooter is kind of one of Spider-Man's signature moves, which is really cool. It is kind of the pew pew button, all right? Like I definitely acknowledge that point as well. I think for me, what puts it just above meh, though, because yes, you're very right, it is the pew pew button, but it's a step above the pew pew attack where that would just like do like a standard amount of damage. Most developers, whenever they incorporate this pew pew attack, I'm just gonna use that phrase now, is like they usually incorporate the slowing them down. You get enough webs on them, they'll stop or slow down kind of thing. And I like that. I appreciate that. I think that is definitely kind of adding to the, to kind of what they have to do for video games, because I can't really think of any place other than video games where the little web bullets thing is really used. Like when he uses his web shooters in the movie, that's like a full stream. It attaches onto something, he yanks it away, and or the person themselves just gets webbed up, kind of thing. So for me, I realize we probably all have different takes here. I'm gonna go ahead and place this one on the C tier as memorable, because while it is the generic pew pew attack, it does give just a little bit more, and I kind of want to give it points for that. So, all right. So these next two are kind of related, and I think you guys are going to like them. So the first one, I think it's officially in the game called pistol and baton yank. It's really a weapon yank, essentially. This is where, some dude with a weapon, you basically throw out your web line, you snatch the weapon, and then you basically like pull it out of their hands and usually stagger your opponent when you do it. All right. First of and that's going to be kind of the extent of this particular ability. Yank and throw builds on that. So I just want to talk about this ability where you just, dude comes up to you, looks like he's about to fire a gun at you, and you're like, oh no, and then yank it away from him. This to me is, of course, a really cool Spider-Man ability. What do you guys think?
I put this in the same line of thinking as I put the web zip, that it kind of comes out of a necessity for gameplay, in that part of the challenge for the combat is going to be threat assessment. And seeing the person out there that has the gun, seeing the person out there with the weapon, and having the ability to kind of mitigate that, like kind of shows off your situational awareness of the game. But it's also not the flashiest thing in the world. And I think I'll say that, like, for something to kind of get to that amazing tier for me, it has to feel like you didn't need to put this in the game, right? And this is one of those Spider-Man skills where it feels like you have to put it in the game because this is something Spider-Man does. But also, this is something related to the gameplay and the type of challenges that you would put in this kind of game. And I think it does that job extremely well. It's just not really doing anything extra for me. And it's great. It's better than memorable. And it's giving me the flow in combat that I need. So I'm going to put that at excellent.
All right. Lewis?
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, excellent. I think got nothing else to say about that one. I think it's necessity for combat for Spider-Man. They didn't do it for a very long time in the games until Marvel's Spider-Man. I can't remember unless I'm missing a game or two. But in Marvel Spider-Man, it became quite a prominent feature. But it was like, it needed to be there.
Yeah, it's definitely a good kind of like building block in the arsenal, like one of the tools that really kind of makes it so that Spidey can, take on a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, no, I think a B tier rating of excellent works wonders. Let's go ahead and move to the next move, which is related. This is the yank and throw. This takes it a step further. Not only have you grab the weapon, now you basically kind of swing it around your head and then you throw it back at the enemy. And you hopefully, like, one of my favorite things to do in any of the Insomniac Spider-Man games is when a dude comes at me with a shield or a baton and I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to give you a backache. And I will grab that weapon, usually throwing them off balance and turning their back to me so that by the time they do, I basically flung that weapon into their back and hopefully they're going to have to wear a back brace for a while. It's a fun move that I feel builds on the weapon yank really well. What do you guys think?
Absolutely. And this is the thing that does it for me, right? It does the extra thing that you didn't have to do this, right? And one of my favorite things to do in action games is taking something from someone and smacking them with it. And to take,
yes.
If you take that even further and I can take you and smack someone else with you, that's my favorite thing. Or if I could pick you up and just kind of like toss you someplace else, like in the Ultimate Alliance games, give me Jean Grey and telekinesis, and I'll pick someone up and I'll throw them into someone. I had fun with Spider-Gwen in Ultimate Alliance 3 because she could make the big giant web ball and swing around and hit everybody, right? So if I can take your weapon and I can smack your allies with it, or smack you, or I can take you and do that, this is great, amazing. I'm not sure if it's iconic yet. It's kind of getting there for me. If this was dedicated to I could pick you up and smack you up into other people, it'd be iconic. But yeah, the taking your stuff.
Yeah, that is a thing you can do, but it's not on the set list. But yes, no, that is a possibility. But okay, so for you, this is an A rating.
Yeah.
All right, Lewis.
By the time Marvel Spider-Man 3 comes out, this will be iconic and a necessity for any future Spider-Man games, because Insomniac have revolutionized this feature. Because not only can you do it for weapons, you can do it for like fire hydrants, things on the street, in the game.
Me the environment, yes.
Yeah, the environment as well. Yeah. Like you can do it for when obviously the Sable trucks come out. You can web the turrets up and then fling the turrets. It's amazing. This feature. Thing is, going into the game, like, before you go into the game, it's not something you'd think, oh, I can't wait to use the fling mechanic and hit people with their... It's like, when I go into a Spider-Man game, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about, the web swinging, it's going to be so cool. Like, but when you get in there, it is genuinely like the ability that you end up using like 70, 80% of the time, because it's just so good. It's so fun and it's so helpful. If you're in a bad situation, just web someone up, throw it at someone, sorted.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like, in those games, when I get attacked by a mob, one of the first things that I do is I look for people with weapons, and if there aren't any, I go looking for fire hydrants, sewer, like manhole covers, anything that I can throw at them, because one, if they're in your swing arc, you knock them down first, and then it's just a really cool thing. It's part of... I feel it's like an integral part of Spider-Man's combat style.
Yeah, you guys have taken me up to iconic here. I haven't played the Insomniac games yet, but like hearing I can look at the environment and like take things from the environment and use that. And this move does that, man. Yeah, S tier.
Yeah, this move is becoming like a staple of Spider-Man games. I wouldn't say it's, in fact, I'd say it's iconic. Yeah, I would. I think Insomniac, 3 games in, I think they've made it iconic for me. I think they have, because you can't not use it in... Like, if they took that out of the next game, something integral would be missing.
Oh, Lewis, you set this up perfectly. Thank you. Speaking of moves that are awesome that they removed from the latest game, let's talk about a favorite of mine. This one's called Payback. I love Payback. Basically, if a dude with a gun shoots you and you manage to pull a perfect dodge, just you dodge at exactly the right time, you basically throw out a web, you blind the gunman in the eye, all right? And then they're vulnerable for a few seconds, and if you can basically target and hit like the right button, you basically can take them down in one hit right afterwards. It's an excellent move that was in the 2018 game. It was in Miles Morales, and then they took it out of Spider-Man 2, and I noticed. And I'm still mourning. Like, I want that move back. Give me that move. That move was very helpful for crowd control. So, um, what do you guys think of this, Isaiah? I realize you probably haven't utilized this move directly in these games, but conceptually, I suppose. What's your take?
So coming from like a gameplay kind of perspective, is that this type of move seems like they're trying to reward a certain type of gameplay from the player.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things that when it is in your arsenal, it sounds amazing. It sounds like something that you don't want taken away, right? But I can't say that this feels particularly Spider-Man, right? Like for something to go to iconic to me, I feel like you're gonna have to put this in the rest of the Spider-Man games, or else it won't feel like Spider-Man. But I feel like this is anything where a game wants to reward you for that quick timing and that great reaction, right? And so I don't know the difference between Spider-Man Insomniac 1 and 2 and what they're trying to reward, but it sounds like if you're taking this out of the game, probably what you want from the player is less reactive gameplay,
Mm-hmm.
and more gameplay where you're in control of the situation and more active, more actively involved. So I can see why that would go away if they're trying to change the way that the game is going. But I can also, this sounds amazing, and I want to put it there in the A tier.
Okay, Lewis.
I think it goes into the D tier for me, unfortunately.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because in Marvel Spider-Man 2, the reason they took it out is because they replaced it with the parry counter move, which is the move. Basically, it's sort of on the similar lines, except instead of dodging out of the way and Spider-Man will web the player for you, you kind of have to, you get a few seconds, like a special icon will come up on the screen basically saying that an enemy is about to do an attack that you can't dodge, or you can't like attack them first and then they won't get you. It's gonna happen. You're gonna have to do something about it. You're Spider-Man. You know your spider sense is going off. You got to do something, and then you have to press a certain button combination. If you press it too late, they'll get you. But if you press it at the right time, you get a really good hit on them, and you can basically get them down, and you can counter them really well. And I think, for me, I think the parry counter at first was a lot to get used to, because it was something that I played the first game and then I played Spider-Man Miles Morales. And when you're 2 games in, it's hard to get used to a new feature like that, because it's quite, it was quite big. It was quite a big change to the combat, because many enemies, any enemy could do it. And it was like, okay, well, this is a big change. But I think by the end of the game, I think it allowed for more, there was more risk involved with, you had to be a bit more cautious with how you approach situations. You didn't want to get yourself in massive crowds. You wanted to maybe use your environment around you, because obviously you can web zip to different locations in like whatever arena you're in. You want to make sure you're using your surroundings a bit more to your advantage. The walls, maybe your webs and your gadgets, and it kind of made you think a little bit more, because if you did get caught out, it was a hell of a lot of damage that would be taken from you. So I think that feature, it was good for what it was at the time, but I think now that the parry feature's involved, I don't think we're going to see that ever again. So I think for me, it has to go in D.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I'm in mourning. I miss it. I loved it. To me, this was one of those things that, like, I guess to me, Spider-Man, yes, he is super strong, but kind of his thing is I he's quick. He's hard to hit, basically. And so I felt like it kind of built on that aspect of him. And you take him down if you get it right. I don't know. For me, I liked it so much. I want to put it in amazing, Lewis. I acknowledge your points for this. And with Spider-Man 2 in the mix and everything, like I understand that they probably took it away to encourage a different style of gameplay. Um which is who has the kitty?
Yeah, that's here.
Oh, okay. Sorry, mine's here too. So she's catnapping. So sorry, but yeah, like I don't know. I really like that move, and I really want it back. So for me, it's also an A tier. So with all respect and deference to Lewis. So
That's fair enough.
Okay, all right. Hey, this is what I like. Differing opinions are good. I like hearing those extra perspectives on them. Okay. All right. We've got 3 moves coming up here that Miles Morales exclusively has access to. We're going to go ahead and start with the Venom. Let me see. That one is the Venom Dash, I believe. Yes. Let me just make sure that I haven't gotten things mixed up, because again, I didn't put captions in these. Yeah, that's got to be the Venom Dash. Okay. All right. So in 2020, we got the Spider-Man Miles Morales game, which I think is a great game. However, it's pretty short compared to the 2018 Spider-Man. It was essentially like a reskinning of that game. However, you had some very unique combat opportunities with Miles Morales, which is exactly how it should be, mainly through his Venom abilities. And I gotta tell you guys, like, when I played Miles Morales, at first I was just kind of like, yeah, this is okay, And then some of my viewers who were watching me play said, okay, let's show you some things. They were like, okay, try this suit mod with this visor mod. And then suddenly it emphasized Miles's Venom abilities to where he could generate Venom faster and then get healed up whenever he knocked someone out who was Venom stunned. And suddenly that changed the entire game. Miles basically became my favorite Spider-Man to do combat with because of his Venom abilities. Venom Dash is actually probably the one that I use the least. Venom Dash is basically Miles kind of charging up and then just shooting forward a few meters with, basically with an attack and knocking down anything that is in his path. It's a fun attack. It really kind of was good for getting distance. When you were up in the air, you could actually Venom Dash to do a little bit of horizontal movement as well. Probably not the one that I used the most. I'll be happy to discuss that one at length. But definitely, if you have a particular fighting style with Miles, I could see how this one could be a useful ability. You guys have any thoughts on this move as you've either experienced in the gameplay or just in terms of its concept?
So this sounds an awful lot like it would be Miles's take on using the web zip in combat. You can use it to close off distances, and then it also seems to have that sort of AoE type of effect too, where anything in the dash line is probably getting knocked over and hit. And so it's one of those things where it is there. It seems to be there for utility, and it has that flavor that would just give you a distinction between Miles and Peter. But I'm gonna go memorable for this because it is adding that flavor to it. But it also just seems like this is a gameplay thing. This is something that we need to facilitate that.
All right, Lewis.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing that's leaving it off D for me is the fact that they put it in there in the first place. Like, it is, I never used it. It was completely useless to me anyway. with Miles, his Venom Blasts, as we'll come on to discuss, are a massive part of the character's gameplay, and I love them so much. But this ability had no use for me because you can still web strike with Miles the same way you can with Peter. You can still web zip the same with Miles that you can with Peter.
Mhm.
So
you can still web zip, then
yeah,
yeah.
there was no reason, there was no incentive for me to use this ability. I only put it in C because it's like they didn't have to include this in the game, but the fact that they're trying to utilize Miles's Venom abilities in any way, shape, or form they possibly can, even if even if you don't have an incentive to use it, it's cool, I guess. But I never used it because there's no reason to. I'm playing a certain way with Peter. I'm gonna play a sort of similar way with Miles, but I'm only gonna play a different way with Miles if you're building upon Peter's baseline combat. So that's why Miles's Venom abilities, his other ones, are really, really good, because they allow you to play as Spider-Man the same way that you'd play as Peter, but then the Venom abilities build upon Miles's character in such a way that it's like, oh, I want to play as Miles because then I get to do this and I get to do that. This ability doesn't do that for me. I didn't see any point of it.
Okay. All right. And for me, again, this is an ability that I didn't use very much either. So, it's not bad. It was just kind of not. It was not in my wheelhouse combat wise, and so I was just like, I'll use it if I ever need to. But that was very few and far between. So I understand it. However, the next one, Venom Smash. Okay. I'm not gonna lie, I liked Venom Smash. Probably used it more significantly than Venom Dash, but less than the next one. But one thing that Venom Smash was really nice for was essentially shield breaking. Like, people would put up these shields that suddenly you couldn't damage them, and it was like, oh no, and you just kind of reared back, charged up, and then just smacked the crap out of them. It was a lovely move, and it was a good way of kind of asserting dominance for foes that were physically bigger and just, you're brutes basically. And so it was a fun manifestation of Miles's powers. I especially loved the first time they introduced it. It was during a cinematic, and Miles is trying to save Peter from the Rhino. So it came at a really cool time as well. What do you guys think?
Yeah, this seems like, it's the Miles thing. You want to have the really cool, strong Venom slam, Venom attack. And my experience with it came more from the Ultimate Alliance game, where kind of the variation is that he would kind of like go forward with a punch. And the cool thing about it is that was a game that was about building synergies and comboing with other characters. But Miles was able to synergize with himself. He could set a bunch of electro webs on the ground, and then he'd do his Venom Strike. And if that AoE attack happened within his webs that were already there, you're getting the synergy bonus with one character. And
nice.
Yeah, that just made Miles like so fun to use. And so that's pretty highly ranked for me. I don't know how it works in the Insomniac game, but from that experience in Ultimate Alliance, I think I'm gonna give it amazing because of its utility there.
All right, Lewis.
I think this has to go straight in iconic for me personally, because the amount of times this got me out of a hairy situation. Oh my goodness me. This move is so good. I think this is one of those things where obviously Miles is a fairly new character to comic books, at least in comparison to Peter. So there's been a lot more games. There's been a lot more games from Peter's perspective before Miles was even created. But then since Miles has come in, and obviously now Miles is starting to get games along with Peter. He's in Ultimate Alliance. He's in Marvel Spider-Man. He's even got his own game. We're going to see him a bunch more in games in the future. I think this is one of those abilities as they start to figure out like how they should handle Miles's abilities gameplay wise, I think this is one of the abilities that will stick around. Like we said with the swing and throw, I think this is one of those abilities that I think if you disinclude from Miles Morales in his gameplay is sacrilege. I think this has to go into a Miles Morales gameplay mechanic. I think if you have Miles Morales in your game, this has to be an ability. And because I think I couldn't play as Miles without this ability because it's so crucial to how I play as Miles. And so I think personally for me, I think it has to go in iconic. It's such a good move and it's such a big part of his gameplay.
This is one of those moves that its introduction was just really cool. Like just watching it was just like, you know, telling the Rhino to step off and then laying him out was just a lot of fun to watch. For me, this ability did get me out of a few jams, like especially if I was overwhelmed and I didn't know what was going on. I would let loose with a Venom Smash, partially because if anyone was in the way, they were going to get hurt. And then two, sometimes I needed the camera reoriented, and it was good at doing that. And so it wasn't a move that I used a lot. For me, it was a very useful move whenever I did use it. So for me, it goes into the amazing tier. It's not quite iconic, but for me, this next one is. This is the Venom jump. Okay. This one, someone had to, I was not using this move for a very long time. And then someone basically said, try these suit and visor mods, and then use the Venom jump. What he does is that if you are in a certain AoE of Miles, if you're within a certain distance of him, he basically flares out a bunch of bioelectricity, Venom, you know, and he jumps up into the air, and if you're caught in that flare up of Venom, you come up there with him, and you're suddenly charged. You're basically you're charged with bioelectricity. At that point, when you're in the air, at a certain point, you're free to start attacking them. They fall slower. They stay up in the air a little bit longer, and then if you have the ability to kind of one-hit kill them, you can take out 3 or 4 guys with one Venom jump and then just finish them off in the air. This move has saved my bacon, I can't tell you how many times in that game. And I think after doing it and finding out how to use the suit and visor mods to enhance it, this just made it my move whenever I was playing Miles. I would go in to a crowd of people trying to beat me up and catch as many people in the radius as possible so that I could just jump them up into the air and then just start wailing on them. I love this move. What do you guys think about it in combat?
Yo, Miles, like you got the air combos. When are you gonna come into the Marvel vs. Capcom games, my friend? Yeah, like this sounds amazing. I was doing my research for this episode, and I was looking at some of the moves in the Insomniac games, and I just kind of saw the move list, and I saw this move, and my original thought of it was, okay, it's an AoE jump attack, and I guess I just like go web zip to someone after I do that. But if you bring everyone around you into the air with you, that's a game changer. I even saw moves where he was able to chain lightning between people, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, you do this, you pop everyone into the air, and then you start doing some of the other Venom things. And I saw like he seems to be very focused on charging up that Venom meter and doing wild, absurd things with this. This seems like the thing that kind of facilitates his gameplay style a lot if you've got the right toolkit for it. Man, but like, is it iconic, right? Like I have to think of it along the lines of like, do I envision Miles fighting people by charging up and then jumping into the air? Right? How much of the cool
if you
factor...
watch me play, you will.
Like there's rule of cool here, but there's also like is this how the character, like when Miles finds
Was
himself
intended,
being
yeah.
the competent superhero that he's going to grow into being, is his fighting strategy going to be jumping into a circle of people and then jumping up and jumping into the sky? And I can't say that is. So it's as a gameplay mechanic, as a lover of aerial combos and just leaving my enemies in a position where I'm in charge and they can't do anything. Amazing. Iconic. This doesn't feel like the way that like a superhero, like I don't think I would feel like the kind of flow that I would like to feel from a Spider-Man.
Okay. Lewis?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Venom punch is iconic because I feel that's Miles's
Thing.
signature. It's his thing.
Okay.
Like, but for me, this one goes in amazing because it's a great move to use in combat. Proper useful for aerial combat and just combos in general. And being able to whip this out in the middle of a sticky situation is also great. Especially at the end of near towards the end of Marvel Spider-Man 2 when you're against all the symbiote hordes and they're really, really powerful. Like the symbiotes at the end of Marvel Spider-Man 2 towards the end of the game, so powerful.
Good
And
God.
there's
Yes.
crowds of them. This move comes in clutch for things like that. But yeah, I think it's not iconic, but it's amazing. I think the Venom punches, but for me, it is in. I do agree, it is an A tier. I think in amazing.
Okay. All right. And again, perfectly willing to cop to being a bit biased here, just because I freaking loved that combo so much, and it was it when I started using it with the modifications that I had, like I was still having fun playing as Spider-Man, like just playing the game as Spider-Man. But with this, like I started having a lot of fun playing as Miles, and for me that did a whole lot to change the game quite literally. So, but yes, no, I think amazing is a perfectly fine rating for that ability as well. Now we're gonna go back to 2018, and we're gonna rate some of the gadgets that Peter employed in Spider-Man 2018. The first of which is the trip mine. Now, the way the trip mine worked, you kind of saw an example of it in Spider-Man: Homecoming when Peter basically shot a web out somewhere, and as a dude was like running at him, like when he crossed the motion sensor on the mine, web just shot out and pinned him to the wall, essentially. So the way trip mines work is you shoot them, and then when your foes come in close enough proximity of them, they basically get webbed up and unable to move. One of my favorite uses of trip mines is to shoot them at an enemy so it sticks to the enemy, and if they're close enough to another enemy, you'll just web them both up at the same time. I feel like this is one of those gadgets that I could see Peter coming up with just to be like, hey, I'm a maker-minded guy. I can invent ways to use webs that will make fighting crime a little bit easier for me. And this one is a favorite of mine. What do you guys think of the trip mine in action or concept?
I'm gonna be a bit biased probably when it comes to gadgets,
Okay.
and it's mostly because of the flavor of Spider-Man, or and I think more and more in media, they're leaning towards that tech scientist end of him. But my growing up experience with Spider-Man, probably the most high-tech gadget he would have was his web shooter. And maybe if he came into combat with something that was more techy, it was for the foes that he needed that extra edge for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like your rhinos and anyone way physically above him, or somebody else with tech like Doc Ock. He might need to come up with something to even the odds up a little bit. And so seeing tech used a lot in the Insomnia games for like the general like combat is just one of those things that's kind of odd to me. And I don't know. I don't quite get into the idea of Spider-Man also having like a little trip mine that he can use to fight the enemies with. And so not having really experienced it, I may have like this bias against like Spider-Man becoming more Iron Man more and more every day. So I'm gonna this one especially probably goes meh for me. The other ones might be more interesting, but yeah, that's where it is for
Okay.
me.
All right, Lewis.
For me, I do agree wholeheartedly. I'm more like I grew up with a more tech based Spider-Man, so maybe that's why I'm a little bit more lenient on it. Like the Dan Slott kind of era, maybe the MCU was coming out when I was like a teenager, so I've kind of been exposed to that for a majority of my life. And I grew up with the Raimi films, so it wasn't there, but it also was there. So I was a little bit maybe more accepting of the fact that Spider-Man's a bit more techy, but also on the same side, I completely understand. Like, it does take something. It does take something special away from the character himself, like him having these powers and like him being able to shoot webs and swing from them and climb walls and stuff. So I completely understand that. But for me, I do draw the line with the tech. I think it got a little bit out of hand in Marvel Spider-Man 2, but Marvel Spider-Man 1 was kind of tapering on that edge. But this one for me, this web mine, it's got to be amazing. It can't be iconic because it's not iconic for the reasons we just talked about. That's not really what Spider-Man's about, but it was so good in the game. Like for stealth missions, attaching this to a wall and just watching enemies walk past and then get zipped up, like this was great. And you could use it twice and then you had to wait for it to reload while you did other stuff. Maybe,
Right.
stealthily took out a guy and then web bulleted something and then a sound went off and a guy went over and then you could put another trip mine there once it loaded back in. Like it was such a good tool to use in stealth missions, and I'm so mad they took it out of the second game. I can't believe they took it out. I'm so annoyed. It's amazing for me, but yeah.
I mean, like they added new stuff and yeah, I some of the new stuff is really cool, but some of this older tech, I'm just like, why'd you take that away? These were fun toys to have in the arsenal. So yeah, for me, this one is a lot of fun. It's one that I did not use terribly often, but whenever I did use it, it was a lot of fun to like shoot it out there and then either watch someone walk into it or, and this happened very rarely with me, if you're in the middle of a fight, you're being overwhelmed by mobs, you just shoot one of these out. Like you can shoot it on the floor in front of you or something and then just go back to fighting. And then like during the fight, another goon just gets taken out simply because they tripped over it or something.
Sounds an
It's
awful
a
lot like the explosive gel in the Arkham Knights games.
yes, and I think that's a very valid comparison because the 2018 Spider-Man game it played very much like the Arkham series of Batman games. So I think that is a very valid comparison. But yeah, it was fun for me. This is this one goes into the excellent category. It sleeps where it falls right there. So, a lot of fun. And I like them as an expression of Peter's ingenuity. I guess if we wanted to dive into gameplay reasons why, it's like, well, okay, Miles has got his Venom stuff. Peter can have his, inventions. Although in Spider-Man 2, they even that became a different thing because the gadgets were then shared between the Spider-Men. Miles had his Venom abilities, and then Peter got like the Venom / anti-Venom abilities. So, they had to shift things around, which I thought was interesting. But I do kind of miss the way things were in the 2018 game. I will admit. So, all right.
Agree.
Next one up is called impact webbing. So you remember how with the regular webbing, you had the pew pew webbing. You had to hit them several times in order to gum them up. Impact webbing was very different. It's like basically a kind of like a shotgun shell of webbing, and you could basically take down brutes with one hit with impact webbing. It was like if you get hit with impact webbing, you are getting webbed up, and if you get thrown into a wall because of the impact webbing, you're not getting up essentially. This one, I mean, again, it was another one of those abilities I could see being a useful modification of the web shooter that I could see Peter kind of like, yeah, I could tweak it so that it'll do this thing, and then boom, brutes aren't as big a problem anymore. What do you guys think? Impact webbing, action or concept?
I'll have to start off with a question, and that is, does Miles also get this ability?
Miles
In the second game, he should do, doesn't he? Or no? Or did he not have the impact webbing in Marvel Spider-Man 2? He doesn't in his game, but
he doesn't in his game. I don't think the impact webbing was in Spider-Man 2.
Okay, so
I don't. Yeah,
I'm digging this a lot more then, because this is one of those things that I feel would make a good distinction between Peter and Miles, especially using that techie end of it to have Peter come up with another way to use his web shooters that show off his ingenuity, and maybe in a way that like Miles probably doesn't even know how to like function that properly in order to get this. So you get something that's a little different for Peter, but it's also the way that web shooting at enemies works in my mind, that I do the thing and you get stuck and I don't have to worry about that enemy for a while, or I don't have to worry about whatever it is that I was just trying to get out of my way for now.
Right.
And from that aspect of it being, it can be more character focused, and it accurately portrays the web shooting. That's gonna go to iconic for me. This feels
okay.
very Spider-Man.
Okay, all right, Lewis.
that's fair enough. Yeah, I guess it kind of incorporates to what you were saying earlier as well about how instead of just shooting multiple times to kind of have some effect, it's kind of a one-off, like I'm going to shoot you and it's going to do something considerable right there and then.
Right.
And for me, it's in B. For me, it wasn't anything special that I used in the game, but I definitely see it. It's a good thing. It's a good piece of tech to use. It's one of the gadgets that I think, for me personally, didn't cross that line of it's too techy, and it does work for Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
As you were saying earlier, you can imagine Peter would, change his web shooters slightly to maybe have more webs. But yeah, I think it goes in B for me. But yeah, it's a good gadget.
Okay, and I seem to be kind of right in the middle. It was one of those abilities that I used fairly regularly. Again, it had a very good use. You could use it on brutes, knock them out, sometimes in one hit, and it was it was fun. And Isaiah, to your point about it doing what the web shooter like should do, like yes, you're completely right there. The biggest con with this ability is that, kind of like the trip mines, you only had like a few before you ran out and had to wait for more. So, but I mean, that's part of the strategy. Like Peter has like 7 or 8 different gadgets in that game. And so, like, if you wanted to just switch between gadgets all the time, you could, and you could actually put up a pretty good fight if you only wanted to use gadgets. I would probably drive myself insane trying to do that, but like, there are gamers out there who will do that, and I've seen some footage of it. It's quite a sight to behold, actually. So
someone needs to start a new game plus and do that.
Oh god,
the gadget challenge.
No regular web shot, just gadgets.
Just gadgets.
Like,
Yeah.
Oh god. Wow. I don't know if that could be done. It would be really cool if it could, though.
You're not even allowed
All
to
right.
web swing anywhere. You gotta like walk everywhere. Imagine how painful that would be.
They'd be using the fast travel a lot more. Time for the subways, you know? All right, final gadget is the electric web. All right. I understand how this one could probably be a little out there for people. But hear me out. This one was really nice for those foes that just gave you a whole lot of trouble. I'm talking like, I mean, forget about brutes. Brutes would easily be taken out by impact webbing, to say nothing of the electric webs. I'm talking about like your armor wearing dudes, like dudes with shields were immune to them unless you could get behind them. But the nice thing about the electric web is that it was basically chain lightning. If you threw that into a group, or if you hit someone who was in a group of people with that, suddenly the entire group is getting shocked and taking damage. It's really good for crowd management and a lot of fun. And you could even get this effect without using the electric webs. Sometimes if you grabbed an electrical appliance and threw it into a group of people, you would have like the same basic thing happen. But the electric web was kind of Peter's like own arsenal of that whenever he needed. It was also used in other game mechanics, and for instance, to like power like fuse boxes and stuff like that when he needed to. So it had more than just combat applications. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
This is the most gamey game thing that's ever gamed before. Like, what I'm feeling is like the first time I played Luigi's Mansion and I've got my vacuum cleaner and I'm going around, and then I get this power up that's a fire medallion, and now my vacuum cleaner shoots out fire. And then later on, it shoots out water and ice, right? This is what this feels like to me, is that they came upon some gameplay situations that they wrote around that's like, well, they're like armored enemies now, and there are like electric things that Spider-Man has to deal with. Okay, let's do the game thing and introduce, an element mechanic, right? I kind of feel... if I wanted to have electric AoE attacks, I'll pick Miles. And so this goes meh for me.
This is technically in the era pre-Miles, just so you know.
This is well, I mean, it also just seems very, very gamey. I mean, the same way that I feel about in Arkham Knight, Batman got ice gloves. Right? It just seems like the game thing to do, that like, we don't know how to logically deal with this situation, so now we go Final Fantasy elements.
Was that Arkham Knight or was that Arkham Origins?
I think it was City. It was Arkham City that he got it.
Okay. It's been forever since I played those games, so okay, all right. But no, you make a good point. You make a good point. Lewis?
Yeah, I gotta agree. This one's gotta go for D for me. For two reasons. Number one, this is where I draw the line with Spider-Man tech. Like, Peter Parker adjusting his web shooters, maybe making a trip mine, I could sort of get behind that because he'd sort of know how to maybe do a sensor thing with the web. Like, I get that. This, I don't think Peter would have any funds for this. I think this is pushing it a little bit too far, especially since he gets evicted in the game. How does this man...
Oh, yeah, he can't afford this.
How does this man make, like, forget the costume, this, like...
I would point out, if we want to go the route of verisimilitude, I would point out that the whole of Spider-Man 2, there is no way that those two can afford the upgrades that they have on their costumes.
Right? Does Miles even work?
He's a college student.
Yeah, he's a college student, and Peter is between jobs at this point. Like, and that was a question that I asked during the gameplay. I'm like, are these guys being bankrolled by Tony Stark? Like, what is going on here? You know? But yeah, no, I'm like, there's a bit of salt that we have to take this with, because a lot of this stuff is going to kind of stretch that belief, though. You know, like, yes, How did he develop the web shooters in the first place if he's unemployed? That's gonna take some tech and some funding too, you know.
Hey, I
So
imagine that like he used the cheapest things he could get, and we don't know what it's made out of, right? It's a proprietary solution. It's probably made out of chemicals you can find under the sink at home, the wet fluid, right?
To be fair, knowing Peter Parker, it probably is. But the second reason, though, I think also, I think if
Mhm.
we're gonna judge these abilities off, are they iconic enough to be where you know they're going to be used in future games? This is one of the ones where it's like it's been made so redundant because if I want an electrical ability, like Isaiah was saying, I'm going to use Miles Morales. I ain't going to look in Peter Parker's direction. So it's like it's been made so redundant. I think story wise, it didn't make much sense. I mean, to be fair, no, most of his gadgets didn't, but this was pushing it for me, for Spider Man. So I think all that together, I think in D, yeah.
Okay. All right. For me, this was a fun ability to use. It was not as fun as, say, the trip mines or the impact webbing. I feel like for me, it's C tier. I'm going to go just a little bit above that because it's one of those things where I could see Peter doing this as a modification for if for nothing else, the non-combat parts of the story where it's like, you know, I run into a place where I need to use power, and he doesn't have Miles with him, and it's just like I could see him trying to science a solution out of that. Um, you know, and he, you know, it does stretch the limits of verisimilitude. I will acknowledge that. But we did see taser webs in Spider-Man: Homecoming. Of course, you know he had Tony Stark
Funded by
behind him
Tony
there.
Stark, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, so I acknowledge your points. I think that if this were pre 2020, um, that that you guys might have a slightly different perspective then, because then Miles' abilities wouldn't be around to compare this to. So, and
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
That's fair
yeah.
enough. Yeah.
I would probably still think it's super gamey.
And you know what? Yes, I agree. It is very gamey. Um, and yeah, I think your point stands. Okay, we got two more abilities left. Now these abilities are from older games. The first one, did you guys play Spider-Man: Web of Shadows?
Oh, loved it. Loved it. Loved it.
Okay,
My favorite before Insomniac, my favorite Spider-Man game of all time.
okay. Isaiah?
I did not.
Okay, all right. So Spider-Man: Web of Shadows was probably my favorite Spider-Man game when it came out. One of the things I loved about it was that it was on the Wii, and so I could use the motion controls to try to web swing, which, you know, I mean, that was fun. They were messed up. The motion controls were messed up, but you know, they were trying. It was something new, and I appreciated that. But the interesting thing about Web of Shadows is that Spider-Man gets the symbiote suit back, and Venom has just gone nuts. He has infected people with these kind of symbiote parasites, and it's basically kind of like a zombie movie. It's kind of like a Spider-Man zombie video game, you know? Um, but he gets the symbiote back to help him combat these things, which causes some narrative issues between him and Mary Jane, for instance, and things like that. But one of the cool things about it was that you could be in the middle of a combo and you could switch on a dime. You could switch the suit on a dime. You didn't have to go into another screen and choose it. You just hit a certain button, and the symbiote suit would give you an entirely different set of moves. And so you can really kind of vary up your combo and do a lot of really interesting things with that ability. And so having and it's been probably a good decade since I played this game, but like I just remember like, and Venom is, again, he's okay. He's not my favorite Spider-Man villain, but like it is ridiculous sometimes how good it feels to either one, play Venom, or two, use some of the very kind of smooth like transition of abilities that you get by being able to switch from one suit to the next like that. It was pretty amazing. I don't know. What do you guys think about this ability in action or concept?
So I am a huge fan of games developed by Platinum Studios. Your Bayonettas, your Astral Chain, or anything from that kind of from that lineage of game making from um, Hideki Kamiya. So like Devil May Cry. Being able to kind of switch my toolkit, my weapons on the fly, extremely fun. Monster Hunter Rise, my favorite mechanic was the switch skill, where I could kind of switch out very specific parts of my toolkit on the fly, and that is a lot less than what something like this does. Something like the Bayonetta, changing my weapon mid-combat, Devil May Cry doing the same kind of thing, right? And just like the fluidity that all of those different types of options give you in combat and expressiveness, it just makes the combat part of a game fulfilling. And yeah, just extremely fun. So I haven't played this game, but hearing that I can switch between a Spider-Man style combat and a Venom style combat on the fly, and just thinking about what that means for combat and mid combo, I could start off something where I'm very agile and then change in the middle of it to go for some big finisher, or I may have fast fluid enemies on the screen, but also like a really big guy. So I'm going to switch to Spider-Man style to kind of deal with all of these small guys and then swap things around and hit the big guy really hard. That is cool. That is great. I'm not going to say iconic. This doesn't sound like the type of thing that needs to be in every single Spider-Man game, but when your game is centered around that, it's amazing. And I hope that it came off amazing in this game. Lou says it was one of his favorite Spider-Man games. You're giving it high praise, so I'm assuming that they played this off very well.
All right. And Lewis?
Yeah, it's a fantastic game, because this is one of the main reasons why I loved it when I was growing up, because this was the you could play all the Spider-Man games at the time. It was, Spider-Man Edge of Time, Shattered Dimensions, the old Neversoft game, and the movie tie-in games. But this was the one game that stood out from the rest for me, because it allowed you to do this. And not only does it allow you to have everything we've just talked about in combat, but based on which suit you use the most in combat, it would send you down a different path in the story. And I think that's really, really cool. So
Yes.
it was like, if you were symbiote Spider-Man, you would be sent down like an evil take over the city Black Cat storyline, and you'd kill Venom in the end. If you went down the good path, you'd get back with Mary Jane. The city would be saved. You save Eddie Brock. No, Eddie Brock sacrifices himself. I'm pretty sure, something like that. It's like a whole different ending, and you could choose which ending you have, and I think that's really, really cool. And for me, I think this is an ability that Spider-Man does in the comics, and it's an ability that Spider-Man does in the TV shows, and many Spider-Man adaptations are renowned for doing this. He can just switch into the symbiote whenever he wants, and the fact that they built a whole game around that, I don't know, my whole inner nerd just went crazy. So for me, it's iconic, because I feel like if you're gonna do the symbiote story, I think you have to include this ability in some way in the game. And they did in Marvel Spider-Man 2. There's an ability where you can, once your power meter is full, you can switch to the symbiote abilities on the fly when you're after the game's finished, should I say, because obviously in the story it wouldn't make much sense, but after the game's finished, they allow the ability to do this. Like if you're fighting and you need a bit of something extra to finish the guys off, you can double tap the joysticks, and you'll get the symbiote abilities, and they'll come in and they'll help you for a period of time, and then you'll go back. It's iconic for me personally. I just think it's such a good ability.
Yeah, again, I'm just gonna go back to it and say that Venom he's fine as a Spider-Man villain. I'm never gonna get super excited about him, but like those early stories were excellent. However, uh, this ability honestly is just so it's smooth. I have never experienced that before or since in a Spider-Man game, and I would not be I would not be remiss to see it again. I definitely, you know, and I mean, people love the black suit. People love the old classic suit. The ability to switch between them just like that just is, you know, I don't know. So for me, yeah, this goes up into iconic just because having experienced it, it was just so ridiculously easy to do, and it shook things up in such a way that it really kind of was just, you know, you couldn't not do that in the game once you had actually tried it out. So
I want to just mention as well,
yeah.
like even though this game is really, really old, if you like Spider-Man and you haven't played this game, I'd still recommend trying to play it somehow.
Oh
Like I
yeah.
get that it might not be as fulfilling because it's not as fluid as the new games and it's like nowhere near as good in certain areas, but like just for the fun, I think it's only like 10 hours long as well, so it's not that long. Just for the fun of experiencing the fact that you can switch, like I think it's well worth playing it if you
Okay.
haven't played it.
Yeah, no, good game. And in this day and age, if you play it, there's probably not going to be any motion controller options or anything. You'd just be playing it on a standard controller. And probably that's for the better at this point. So yeah, I agree. I agree. All right, final ability, guys. This one is probably the strangest one that I found. This one is from the PlayStation 1 Spider-Man game. This is the web cocoon. Now, this is one ability that I have never used and never experienced, but my understanding is that in the PlayStation game, he could basically use a web cocoon and kind of stay in there for protection. And then at a certain point, he could like I don't know, just explode it open and damage enemies with it. Again, this is one of the stranger ones that I've only read about, but I was like, this is too weird not to include. I must see what you guys think of it. So, thoughts?
Can we add an F tier?
Oh, wow.
I've played those games
Wow.
ages ago, and I don't recall ever using this move.
But
I mean,
it did exist, right?
yeah, and
Okay,
cool,
okay.
you'll have a big explosion thing afterwards. But like, what am I getting out of sitting around in a cocoon for a few seconds? Um, when I could be actively engaged in combat.
Right.
And it's like, I get it. Like, I don't recall combat being great in those games. But hiding behind a shield and doing nothing for a bit until you trigger it, just not compelling gameplay, not a
That's
compelling
fair.
ability. And not something I would imagine from Spider-Man. Like, if Spider-Man's going to do a cocoon, it's going to be something that he cannot dodge, right? And it's something that his webs are going to also be able to withstand somehow, right? Like, I would only imagine maybe some sort of comic book laser beam or something would be. But even then, you got to take the time to make the cocoon when he could
Yeah.
be running away. So it's a weird ability, and I'm not a fan of things that make me passive for too long. I mean, like, shield abilities in games can be pretty cool. Messing around with one of the shield weapons in Bayonetta 3 right now, and it's got like, you can charge up things, and she blocks as she's charging, and so I'm actively doing something while I'm blocking. But
Right.
you're not really actively participating in combat with hiding inside of a cocoon. It's not cool. It's not fun. It's not exciting. This is not great.
Okay. All right. Lewis?
That's fair enough. For me, it is memorable only because I think the Neversoft game, the first one, obviously was limited to when did it come out? 1999, I believe.
It
I think
was
that's
99 or 2000. Yeah.
Yeah. It was obviously very limited to what it could do with Spider-Man in that kind of, era of video games. I don't play many video games, so I'm not really too big on like I don't really know how they developed, but I assume it was at a time where what they did in the game was kind of the limit they were at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So this ability I remember in the game actually. It was something that I think when you did come up against a crowd of symbiotes, it allowed you to just like be, it kind of like, regain a bit of, I don't know, what do you call it, like you kind of get yourself back on your feet, rethink a little bit tactically, and then explode, and then the symbiotes will take a bit of damage or whatever. It's not the best move ever. I just thought for the game, for what it had, there wasn't many moves or combos. It was all kind of same. So I think it was something a little bit different. So for me, it's memorable. Whenever I think of the web shield, I always think of the Neversoft game. I don't think it's been used since. So yeah, it's memorable. I don't think it's D quite for me, but I think it's not any higher than C. Definitely not.
Well, this is the only ability that I am judging that I have never actually used. So, and on paper, this was a very strange ability. I was just like, what? Like, I could see like there's been media where Spider-Man is, sculpted his webs into like shields and swords and things. I mean, mostly cartoons and stuff like that. But like a cocoon, I could kind of sort of see him doing. And I'm just gonna go ahead and set aside the kind of the logistics of how the heck you actually do that. But is that a bird?
Yes, there's a bird here as well.
Okay. I was like, what was that? Okay. Let me see. I'm sorry. That.
Yeah, she's going. I think. Yeah, my roommates are here. That's why she's chirping. They just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. We can maybe take a sidebar for a moment then. But yeah, this is just an ability that I was just kind of like, what is this? And I could see him doing it under certain conditions and everything. I think where it really loses me is I'm gonna explode this apart and the shrapnel is going to damage people. I'm just sitting here wondering how that works exactly. I don't know. It's kind of one of those things. Like, I'm reluctant to give it a meh rating because it is, again, an ability that I haven't actually used, and maybe I'll use it and I'll be like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and just give it a C tier for memorable, and hopefully we can just kind of leave it there. But everyone's points about each and every one of these abilities is absolutely valid, and I feel like it's a good thing that it's always good to kind of like share our perspectives about these things and how they make us feel and why we might feel the way about them that we do. So, all right. So let me just see. This may take a moment. I'm going to go through the final tier list that we came up with. Again, and guys, I'm cognizant that Isaiah and Lewis would probably have slightly different tier lists than I would. But at least for the one that we've kind of come together and that I've kind of put my final stamp on, up in the iconic S tier, we've got the web swing, we have got the yank and throw mechanic, and then we've got the symbiote instant change. For the amazing tier, we have payback, we have the venom smash, the venom jump, and I believe that's impact webbing right there. In the B tier for excellent, we have the web zip, we have the weapon yank, and then we have the trip mine. And then finally, rounding things out in the C tier, We have the web bullets / web projectiles. We have the venom dash. We have the electric webs, and we have the web cocoon. Guys, do you have any final thoughts on this list? I realize this is an incomplete listing of Spider-Man's moves and abilities, and that is partially by design. But I mean, I only had 14 on here, and I know we've spent at least an hour talking about it, which is part of the reason that I'm just like, yes, this is why I chose so few, and this is also why I would like to do another such segment at some point in the future. But any final thoughts? Did you guys have a good time with this? What are your assessments?
Yeah, I had a good time with this. I especially had fun kind of seeing some of these abilities that I haven't messed around with at all because I haven't played the Insomniac games, and they are on my radar, and that they are getting closer and closer on my radar now. The more I look at these things, but coming at it from a different perspective and hearing what you guys had to say was really fun.
All right, Lewis.
Yeah, just 100% agree. It's been fun to hear different takes on them. I definitely saw things from a different perspective or two on some of like the like approaching it from a more gameplay side of things. Especially Isaiah made a few very good points about how maybe it's not the best gameplay wise potentially, and yeah, definitely some good talks.
All right. Okay. Well, that closes out our tier listing, and I just want to say thanks again to Lewis and Isaiah for taking part in today's tier list. And let's see, we've more or less gotten the parting thoughts out of the way. Lewis, do you have any new content coming down the pipeline for your channel?
Nothing out of the unusual. Just keep making Spider-Man videos. Currently working on a new podcast though, actually, which is completely unrelated to Spider-Man. It's a sport thing, a Formula One podcast.
Okay.
Getting started on that. I know it's getting quite big in the States now, so me and my friend who have always kind of been interested in, we're like, okay, well maybe this is like the best time to hop on the content for it. So that's something, a little side projects I'm starting up at the moment. But apart from that, yeah, it's just cracking on as usual.
You're gonna get on those challenge runs too, right?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. You'll be seeing me playing those games, doing the challenge runs in the coming years, because it'll take me years to complete them. But we'll see.
Well, that's excellent, and I wish you all the best with that. Hopefully, I'll still have some access to you for this podcast, but if you get busy, I understand. So all right, and Isaiah, I want to thank you again for being here. You. This is I think this is your second appearance on the podcast. So
yes.
Do you have any final thoughts before we go on to the next segment? Or
no, this was fun. I would definitely like to show up for round 2 of this.
Okay, all right. Anything new coming out from your webcomic endeavors?
Yeah, so my webcomic, Transiltown, it's about this kind of shy and awkward vampire boy and his best friend that's a slayer and the adventures that they go on. Did conclude, but I am currently doing some print exclusive stories for it right now because I'm launching a Kickstarter for the Omnibus collection. I'll be pushing the start button on that fairly soon at the beginning of February. So be on the lookout for that. You can check me out at iBroussard on both on Twitter, Facebook, iBroussard Art on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or my website, brasscomics.com. And yeah, you'll be able to stay posted on the Kickstarter when that launches.
All right. Well, cool. Best of luck with that. I hope it does well, and I'll make sure to put links to your social media and to Brass Comics in the live stream description and the show notes. So, all right. Well, many thanks to our live stream audience for their input and participation. Remember to save and send your tier lists to my Discord server, to the Webline tier list channel. Discord invite is on my YouTube channel. Discord invite is on my YouTube channel banner, show notes, and live stream description, and may have appeared during the show's live stream. I don't know if it did this time around. Thank you for listening, and now let's move on to the Web Spinners recommendations. All right. So for this next bit, usually I know what I'm going to recommend this week, and this week I didn't really put much thought into it, so I kind of have to think. Oh, that's right. Okay, I actually do have something, and it's related to my content creation. So for this week's Web Spinners recommendation, I would like to recommend the movie Jurassic Park. This movie, which is from, 1993, I think? 1993 or 1994? This is a classic movie that I only recently watched for the first time. And as someone who was a teenager when this movie came out, I have told people that I haven't seen it and their jaws would hit the floor. I finally sat down and watched it. I actually have done a live streamed reaction, which you can find on my YouTube channel. So if you want to do it in watch along format, you will get to watch me reacting to the entire movie. It was a lot of fun. I knew enough about Jurassic Park to understand its cultural impact. I was aware of several memes that had come out of Jurassic Park. There were a few that I saw in the movie that I hadn't connected to the movie, like when when Wayne Knight's character is pointing around going, see, no one cares. Like that meme is in Jurassic Park. I didn't know that. So needless to say, I got a lot of fun and entertainment from watching this movie where, this dinosaur park is on the verge of being opened, and the kind of adventures and misadventures of the crowd of anthropologists, archaeologists, and people just trying to run the park and make a buck when a lot of things go wrong and the dinosaurs get loose. Great deal of fun. I'm sure many people have seen it, but until recently, I had not. And if you haven't seen it, I think you're doing yourself a big favor by going ahead and watching it. All right, Lewis, do you have any media recommendations this week for my listeners to read, watch, play, or listen to?
I'm going to be very, very boring because I'm not really watching or reading anything that blows me away at the moment. But I'm going to go and recommend Ultimate Spider-Man issue 1 only because, well, it's on topic, I guess.
Dude, no, yeah, that's an excellent recommendation, actually.
Only because this year,
yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, this year it's Spider-Man comics, as people know, haven't been the greatest over the last couple of years, and if you haven't read them, I don't blame you. But this year is the year. Ultimate Spider-Man is the start of something great. I believe in it. We've also obviously got Greg Weisman writing Spectacular Spider-Men coming in March as well.
Yep.
Which, if I'm on an episode around March time, if I'm ever making another appearance, I will definitely recommend that as well. But
fair.
That's going to be great. So yeah, Ultimate Spider-Man issue 1. If you want to get back on Spider-Man comics, or if you've never read them before, this is a great place to start. It's a great place to jump in, and it's actually really good. It started good, and it's probably going to be good for the rest of the series.
That first issue, by the end, I was like, oh, this is really cool. I don't want to go into spoilers. I did have one reservation about it, which I'll talk to you about it in a little bit. But yeah, no, overall, loved it. Great. I want more, so. All right. Isaiah, do you have any media to recommend this week for my listeners to read, watch, play, or listen to?
Yeah, I'm going to recommend the sports manga Dogs Red. Ever since Haikyuu ended, I've been looking for a good sports series to kind of get into because it's, I love a good battle shonen manga, but it kind of
Uh-huh.
gives you a different kind of feeling when that kind of those tropes are taken into a sports direction. But Dogs Red is created by Satoru Noda, who is well known for his previous series, Golden Kamui, which ended about a year or so ago. And it's about a former figure skater who is now learning to play hockey. And what's really interesting, and I guess I have to also recommend reading Golden Kamui, which they're two vastly different genres, but Dogs Red is a recreation of Satoru Noda's very first series that actually got canceled before he did Golden Kamui, and then he got acclaimed for Golden Kamui and got a chance to redo Dogs Red. And what's interesting about this recreation is that it actually takes place in the same reality as Golden Kamui, which is very strange because that's a very different genre. It's a historical period piece that takes place shortly after the Russo-Japanese War, and has to deal a lot with indigenous cultures between Japan and Russia, and this race for gold and these criminals who have tattoos for it. And it's full of reverence for food, reverence for culture, and poop jokes. And to go and to go for something that
The trifecta right there.
yeah, but it also has to deal a lot with like trauma from being in war, as well as like what happens to displaced cultures in war. And going from, I thought it was very, very interesting to go from that kind of series into a sports manga, but it takes place in the same region about 80 or so years ago in the future. Dogs Red does. And what's really cool about it is that some of the characters are related to or outright reincarnations of characters from Golden Kamui. So part of the fun too is seeing some of these characters and seeing them recreated in this sports manga instead of this more serious action thriller.
And what were they called again? Both of these mangas?
Golden Kamui and
Okay.
Dogs Red.
Dogs Red. Okay. All right. Very cool. It sounds very interesting. I'm not much of a sports guy, but I am interested in a good, like, sports narrative, as long as it's well told, is always something I can get into. Like I'm a big fan of Ted Lasso, which, I don't know a thing about soccer, but God, I love that show. So, but okay. Well, thank you guys for your recommendations. And I believe that brings us close to the end of the show. If you enjoyed this episode of The Webline, please be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on my YouTube channel, simply named Spidey Librarian, where I also maintain a playlist of all podcast episodes. The Webline is also available on audio services, so when you see us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or another such service, please leave a review, rating, and, where possible, follow us as well. You can find me on my socials under the name Spidey Librarian on Threads, Twitter/X, or Twixter, as I'm now calling it, Instagram, Facebook, WordPress, and Twitch. Finally, if you'd like to shoot me an email, you can contact me at spideylibrarian@gmail.com, where I'll be happy to hear your thoughts, rants, and ideas. You never know. Your email might be featured in an upcoming episode. Next Sunday, January 28th, will feature a retro review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. My friends Aaron Garcia and Maynard will join me to discuss this controversial 2014 installment in the Andrew Garfield saga. How fondly do we remember this movie, and have our perceptions of it changed in the last few years? Join us next week on Sunday, January 28th to find out. Thanks again to Lewis and Isaiah for joining me in this gaming tier list episode, and Thank you for listening. Until the next episode, I'll be wishing you a good day. Bye.